Greetings, fellow book lovers, and welcome back to Colin's Corner. Today, I will be doing a spoiler-free review of Gardens of the Moon, the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. But before we get into today's review, we have to go over the answer for the last Comedy with Colin segment, where I asked you guys the joke, why should you never date a tennis player? The answer? Because love means absolutely nothing to them. Alright, now let's get on with this review. Holy cow. What an absolutely wild journey this first book in the series was. So what is Gardens of the Moon about, you ask? Well, I'm going to try to do my absolute best to give a spoiler-free summary and give you guys a taste of my experience with this book. So this series is called the Malazan Book of the Fallen. So right from the onset, we are told that this series is going to be a book about fallen people. So it should give you a general idea of the kind of overall tone of this series. It's not exactly going to be the most upbeat type of read. So we are beginning our journey, if we exclude the prologue, with chapter 1, where we open up on a continent called Genebakis. Yes, we open up on a continent, and yes, this is one of 6 continents in the Malazan world. So this is an absolutely massive scope on this series. If you look up a world map and a map of the Malazan Empire, you can like overlay them and just kind of get a grasp of just how vast this world is that Erikson created. Now, the Malazan Empire is basically just doing what empires do. They are going around, traveling around the map, and conquering cities, swallowing up cultures and peoples, using unrelenting and unmerciful force to basically just take whatever they want. Now, all of this is going on under the reign of a relatively recent empress named Empress Lysine, who took over the helm of the Malazan Empire after the mysterious disappearance of the previous emperor Kelenvad. So the first chapter of this book starts in the 103rd year of the Malazan Empire, but only the 7th reign of Empress Lysine's rule. So, like I just mentioned, we are getting the viewpoint of an empire that has very recently encouraged a power shift, a power dynamic shift, and is under new leadership and is being run in a completely different way. Erikson pretty much opens this book in a very in media res way, where this conquesting of Genebakis and all over the world has been going on for years. And in the very first part of this book, we are getting to see the aftermath of what is called the Siege of Pale. Now, Pale is one of the 12 cities on Genebakis. 11 of them are now conquered. So after the Siege of Pale, the events in this narrative take a turn, and we are getting to see basically the events leading up to Empress Lysine's attempt at overtaking the very last free city on the continent of Genebakis, named Darujistan. So that is more or less the general overview of the plot of this story. This first book is very unlike almost any other fantasy book that I've read. There are a lot of POV characters, and I mean a lot. According to a post on the r/Malazan subreddit on Reddit, we get to experience 33 different POV characters in just this first book in the series. These POVs are ranging from some of the highest ranking members of the conquesting Malazan Empire all the way down to some of the lowest members of the social hierarchy. We are getting to see some insanely impactful and world-altering plans being shaped by some of the biggest players within the Empire. We are introduced to some of the most iconic military units of the Empire, such as the Bridge Burners and Dujek One-Arm's host, and the legendary soldiers that comprise these units. And we also get to see a lot of perspectives from the conquered peoples. We get to see what it looks like looking through the eyes of some of these people that have been overtaken by the Empire and the fallout that comes with that in these kind of just devastated cities, and this societies that just get completely upturned when they basically either get their rule taken or they hand it over to the Malazan Empire. Now, one of the things that I had to come to understand very early on in this series is that this isn't necessarily a story where we are following the good guys or we are following the bad guys. Erikson just kind of gives us everything, and it almost feels like he's like, here's the facts, do with them what you will. So Erikson has a ton of trust in the reader uh, to make sense of the information, and I feel like he is purposefully giving the information that he wants us to know about characters and plot lines when he wants us to know them. But it seems to be enough information to make sense of what's happening. Another thing that I found throughout this first book is that the characters are very nuanced. So we're following members of the Malazan Empire, which inherently is doing something horrible, but there are many members of the different facets of the Empire that I loved to follow. And the characters in this book, whether they are fighting against or for or on the outside, the outskirts kind of looking in on all of this, is that these characters are so nuanced. There isn't really a straight good, straight bad. Even the people that seem like the big baddies, you learn more about them as the story goes on. And it's very reminiscent of real life and how just humanity can be. I mean, everybody can harbor secrets and have, outside plots and ulterior motives. And there's tons of characters that have their own individual plotline and their own individual journey throughout the course of this book. On top of all the viewpoints of the humans and the other mortal races in this world, Erikson goes ahead and throws in gods. Now these gods have a hand in on all the goings-on that is happening on the ground in Genebacus, in other parts of this world, and the gods have their own schemes and plans, and they have their own ideas for how they want things to turn out. The magic in this world is extremely interesting, although I know that I don't exactly understand how it works right now, and I'm totally cool with that. I'm not somebody that needs a very structured, hard magic system, and I don't need to know why everything works. It's magic. It works. It's cool to learn more about it, and I think that we definitely will over the following books in this series. But just to give you guys kind of an idea, we've got magical aspects such as mind control, mind influencing, possession, conjuring of spirits, soul shifting, and these things called warrens. This is the aspect of the magic system that I'm kind of the most confused about. From what I kind of gather, the warrens are essentially like the sources of magic. They're like where the magic is pulled from. And certain warrens allow the magic wielder to employ certain different kinds of magic, and not every magic wielder in this world has access to all of the warrens, which means that just because you have the ability to use magic, it doesn't mean that you have the ability to use all of the kinds of magic that are possibly available. And I might be a little off base on that, but just like I said, just based on this first book, that's kind of what I think warrens are. So if you know and you want to put in the comments, make sure you put a bunch of spaces just to not spoil anything for anybody. But that's kind of my idea of like what the warrens are. They seem super, super cool and really interesting. There's some really popular warrens that are talked about and mentioned in the series that we get to visit, and they're super fun to explore with the characters that get to go to them. So that's kind of my idea of the magic system that is, and I know it's probably deeper, much deeper than we get in this first book, but that's what I kind of gleaned from it, just from Gardens of the Moon. I want to touch on a few characters that really intrigued me. First of all, I want to just talk about Kruppa. Kruppa is a character we get introduced to when we finally make it to Darujhistan, and I think he's kind of got everybody fooled. He works with the Assassin's Guild, kind of in the underbelly, seedy underground part of the city of Darujhistan, and he walks around acting all aloof and oblivious. He's always eating. He's very sloppy, and it feels like he kind of wants people to just view him as this unassuming, goofy kind of guy. But there are hints that he's much more powerful than he leads people to believe. So he is a very intriguing character to me. And another one that I do want to learn much more about is Quick Ben. Quick Ben is a mage, and he is a member of the aforementioned legendary Bridge Burners. And Quick Ben seems like he's got way, 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 way more power and skill than we can even grasp in this first book. I really enjoyed his dynamic and the scenes where him and Kalam were kind of going on their own missions and working together. But yeah, Quick Ben, again, I think some people know just how powerful he is, but we don't really get to learn too much about it in this first book. So I'm really excited to see anything else about Quick Ben. And last but not least, I feel like I kind of almost have to talk about possibly the coolest character I have ever been introduced to in fantasy, and that would be Anomander Rake. I mean, Anomander Rake. Come on. Is that not like the coolest fantasy name you can think of? Oh, and by the way, other names he's referred to as are the Lord of Moonspawn and the Knight of Darkness. Yes, please. Oh, and by the way, his sword even has a sweet name. Dragnapor? I mean, come on, this dude has got to just win the award for possibly the coolest ever conceived fantasy character. Although this world that Erikson has created may be experiencing an extremely dark time, one of the things that surprised me the most about Gardens of the Moon was how much humor was involved in this, especially once I got to know the characters and to understand more kind of about Erikson's style. I went into this thinking it was going to be very serious and the stakes were always going to be high, and things are serious and the stakes are massively high, but there are still moments where I just found myself laughing multiple times throughout the course of this book, and I just would catch myself like reading pages about some of the characters that I like have already grown to love and just smiling while I'm reading about what they're doing and their dialogue. He's very, very talented with dialogue and giving characters individual sounding and feeling voices and senses of humor and tones and personalities. So this was probably the biggest surprise for me, was just how talented Erikson was about writing all these characters, even though the main focus, I don't think, of this story is the characters. It's kind of the overarching plot. I thought that the character work and the humor involved via the dialogue through the characters was extraordinary. Overall, I really enjoyed my experience with this first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen a lot, and I think I just want to note that the level of intimidation and confusion that this series has kind of garnered, it might just be a little like slightly overblown. There's a ton to kind of get your head around as this is unfolding in this first book especially, but there are, I believe, enough information is given and there are enough resources online if you want to seek them, to really kind of help put this story together and get a somewhat firm grasp of what's going on in Gardens of the Moon. Now, I will just note, be very careful looking anything up online. Don't be vague typing just Malazan in, because I don't want anything to get spoiled for anybody when and if you are doing your own research. So just do online research at your own discretion. So that is going to do it for my review of Gardens of the Moon, the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Let me know in the comments if you guys are excited to watch me go on this journey finally, and if you've read this book or finished the series so far and what you thought overall about it. Before we go, we have to do comedy with Colin, and today's joke is going to be, what is the best way to carve wood? If you think you know the answer, drop it down in the comments below. Thank you guys, if you're still here, so much for watching. I appreciate you so much. I hope you are all enjoying what you're currently reading, and remember, you're always welcome in Colin's Corner.